They called me an outsider in my own house. My mother-in-law threw away my grandmother's jewelry to make room for my sister-in-law's closet, but what my 7-year-old son said next made them all go silent. "You're all going to be homeless." They laughed. 3 months later, none of them were laughing anymore. If you think family always comes first, you need to hear what happened when I decided blood isn't thicker than property deeds. I'm Angela, and this house in Pennsylvania was supposed to be our sanctuary. 4 bedrooms, granite countertops I picked myself, and a master bedroom with a walk-in closet where I kept my grandmother's jewelry box. Every morning I'd touch that box before starting my day. It was the last piece of her I had left. Mike always said this house was our safe place, where we could build our future together. But that Tuesday morning changed everything. I heard tires on gravel, then the unmistakable sound of a U-Haul truck backing into our driveway. I touched my grandmother's jewelry box every morning. It was the last piece of her I had left. Mike always said this house was our sanctuary, but that Tuesday morning, I heard his parents' car pull into our driveway, with a U-Haul behind it. Can you sense when your life is about to flip upside down? Mike met them outside. I couldn't hear what they were saying through the kitchen window, but I watched his shoulders drop in that way they always did when his mother made decisions for him. When he walked back into the house, his face told me everything was about to change. "My parents are going through some financial difficulties," Mike explained, not quite meeting my eyes. "They need to stay with us temporarily while they figure things out." Before I could even respond, Martha was already inside, surveying our kitchen like a general planning a takeover. "Oh, honey, this layout is all wrong," she announced, opening our carefully organized cabinets. "I know how to optimize space much better than this." Within an hour, she'd rearranged everything. Suddenly, I couldn't find the coffee mugs in my own kitchen. Robert, Mike's father, claimed the garage immediately. No discussion, no asking permission. Just started moving his tools in like he owned the place. You know that feeling when someone rearranges your kitchen and suddenly you can't find anything? That powerless anger when they smile and say they're helping? I felt like a guest in my own home. But the real shock came when I found Martha measuring my walk-in closet with a tape measure. "Oh, honey," she said without looking up, "Sarah's going to need more space than this." Have you ever had someone invade your personal space like this? Sarah, Mike's recently divorced sister. Martha explained, like she was discussing the weather, that Sarah would also be moving in for a short time with her 2 children. "Just until she gets back on her feet," Martha said. But something in her tone made my stomach turn. I tried to object gently. "Martha, I appreciate that family helps family, but we didn't discuss this. Our house is going to be pretty crowded with 7 people. She cut me off with a wave of her hand. "Angela, family takes care of family. I thought Mike had taught you that by now." The way she said it made it clear she thought I was failing some basic test of loyalty. That's when she said it for the first time. We need to eliminate some things that don't belong to the core family. The way she looked at my belongings when she said it made my stomach drop. I looked at Mike, waiting for him to defend me, to say something, anything, but he just stared at his shoes like a scolded child. That's when I knew I was fighting this battle alone. Over the next 2 weeks, my belongings started disappearing. Our wedding photos were packed away for safety and stored in boxes in the basement. My grandmother's china set was temporarily relocated to make room for Sarah's dishes. Martha always had perfectly reasonable explanations. "We're just making space, dear. Everything's safe. Just store it away until we have more room." Maybe you're wondering why I didn't just put my foot down, why I let it happen, but you have to understand. They made it sound so reasonable, so temporary, until the morning I woke up and found boxes in our bedroom, my bedroom. Martha was packing my clothes into garbage bags. "Ben ko myon kan bao toi kong." "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Sarah and the children need the master bedroom," Martha explained matter-of-factly. "It makes more sense since she has 2 kids. You and Mike can take the basement room. It's actually quite cozy down there." That afternoon, my 7-year-old son Tommy came home from school to find his grandmother throwing away his toys, not donating them, not packing them, literally throwing them in trash bags. "Grandma, are you cleaning?" Tommy asked innocently. Martha's response was ice cold. "I'm making space for family that actually belongs here." I saw my son's confused face and felt my heart shatter. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that his grandmother just called his mother an outsider? Tommy stared at his reflection in my grandmother's jewelry box mirror before Martha closed it. "Mommy, why is Grandma taking your treasure away?" That's when I knew this wasn't temporary. This was a permanent coup. 3 days later, Sarah arrived with her 2 children and 15 boxes of belongings. Martha announced that the master bedroom arrangement was final and that Mike and I would be much more comfortable in the basement. Mike didn't protest, not once. Martha smiled that cold smile. "Angela, dear, I've eliminated all the things that didn't belong to real family members. You understand, don't you?" I stood there holding one garbage bag of my belongings while Sarah hung her clothes in my grandmother's closet. That's when Tommy tugged my shirt and whispered something that changed everything. What do you think a 7-year-old could say that would change this situation? "Mommy, is this really Daddy's house?" Tommy whispered, his big eyes full of confusion. I knelt down to his level, suddenly realizing my son didn't understand property ownership the way adults do. "Well, sweetie, this is Mommy and Daddy's house. We both live here." Tommy's next question hit me like lightning. "But you bought it before Daddy, right? Like how I had my bike before Justin got his." Some of you probably already know where this is going, but I didn't. I was so beaten down, so gaslit that I'd forgotten my own power. "So that means you can tell them to leave, right? Like when I have to leave Justin's house, when his mom says so?" Do you see what the adults missed but the child understood? That night, after everyone was asleep, I crept into the home office and found our house deed in the filing cabinet. The reality hit me like a freight train. I had bought this house 2 years before Mike and I got married, using my inheritance money from my grandmother. Mike was added to the deed after our marriage, but I was the primary owner. Looking at that deed was like staring into my grandmother's mirror again. I saw who I really was, not the powerless victim, but the homeowner. But there was more. I found our joint bank statements from the last 3 months. Someone had been transferring our savings to an account I didn't recognize. Have you ever discovered something that made you question everything you thought you knew? The bank records showed that Mike had transferred $23,000 from our joint account to an account under Robert's name. The stated reason was to help parents through financial difficulties. But when I looked closer at Robert's spending, the money had gone toward a new truck, a boat, and expensive electronics. So when Martha said she was eliminating things that don't belong, she was talking about eliminating me while stealing my money to fund their lifestyle. I sat there with evidence of financial abuse in my hands, but I wasn't ready to confront them yet. I needed to understand the full scope of their plan first. What would you do with this information? I became a detective in my own home. I started secretly photographing everything, my belongings in garbage bags, my grandmother's jewelry now sitting on Sarah's dresser, the bank transfer receipts. I even installed a small camera in the living room to record their conversations when I wasn't around. I became a spy in my own home. Some of you might think that's extreme, but when you're being gaslit daily, you need proof of reality. The camera captured something I never expected. Martha and Robert weren't just planning to stay. They were planning to force me to leave. How far would you go to protect your rights? The footage was devastating. Martha speaking to Sarah while they thought I was grocery shopping. "Once we establish residency, Angela won't be able to force us out. Mike's too weak to stand up to his family. We just need to make her uncomfortable enough to leave on her own. Then Mike can refinance the house and add our names to the deed." Watching that footage was like looking through a two-way mirror. I could finally see the manipulation I'd been blind to for months. But the most shocking part was what Sarah said next about Tommy. The kid's getting suspicious. We might need to deal with that, too. How would you feel discovering your in-laws were plotting against your child? I knew I needed professional help. The next morning, I secretly called Mrs. Chen, a family lawyer I'd found online. During our consultation, she explained that as the primary homeowner, I had the legal right to evict anyone, including Mike if necessary. She also educated me about financial abuse laws and the importance of document preservation. Mrs. Chen's words were powerful. You don't need to eliminate people from your life, Angela. You just need to eliminate their ability to abuse you. Armed with legal knowledge and evidence, I realized I had all the weapons I needed, but I decided to give them one final chance to reveal their true colors. Do you think she should give them a chance or act immediately? I called a family meeting. Mike looked nervous as I spread the bank statements across the kitchen table. I found something concerning, I said calmly. Can someone explain this $23,000 transfer to your father's account? Mike stammered something about it being a temporary loan. Robert became immediately defensive. We're family. We don't need permission to borrow money. Martha's response was the most telling. Angela, you're being very selfish right now. Family comes first. I gave them the chance to be honest, to apologize, to work things out. Some of you probably think I should have just kicked them out, but I needed to see who they really were. That's when Martha crossed the line. She looked at Tommy and said, "Tell your mother she's being mean to family, sweetie. Have you ever had someone try to turn your child against you?" Martha tried to manipulate my 7-year-old son. "Your mommy wants to kick Grandma out. Do you want Grandma to be homeless?" Tommy looked confused and scared, glancing between the adults like he was watching a tennis match. The mirror shattered completely. I could see the emotional manipulation they were using on my 7-year-old son. This wasn't just about me anymore. Tommy looked at Martha with those clear, honest eyes that only children have and said something that silenced the entire room. "But Grandma, you told Sarah that Mommy should leave, not you." That moment when a child exposes adult lies, have you experienced that clarity? The room went dead silent. Tommy, not understanding the gravity of what he'd just revealed, continued with devastating innocence. "I heard you tell Sarah that we need to make Mommy uncomfortable so she'll go away. Then Uncle Mike can give you the house." Martha panicked. Tommy's confused. Children misunderstand things. But Tommy wasn't finished. He looked directly at me and said, "Mommy, Grandma said we need to eliminate you like the other things that don't belong." The adults went dead silent. Mike finally spoke, but instead of defending me or our son, he said the words that ended our marriage forever. What do you think Mike said that was unforgivable? "Angela, you're overreacting. Tommy's just a kid. He doesn't understand adult conversations. My family is going through a hard time, and as my wife, you should be supportive. Maybe it would be better if you took some time to think about your priorities." You all saw it coming before I did, didn't you? How Mike would choose his manipulative family over his wife and child. I was the last to accept it. I looked at my husband, the man who vowed to protect me, essentially telling me to get over being abused by his family. Have you ever had someone minimize your valid concerns like this? Martha, emboldened by Mike's support, went even further. "Angela, I've tried to be patient with you, but you're not blood family. Sarah and her children are Mike's real family. You and Tommy would probably be happier in a smaller place anyway." She actually suggested that I take my son and leave my house so her daughter could have it. The audacity was breathtaking. I stood up slowly, looked at each of them, and said 7 words that changed everything. "Tommy, go pack your favorite toys, now." That moment when you realize diplomacy is over, do you know that feeling? I walked calmly to the phone and dialed Mrs. Chen's number right in front of everyone. "Mrs. Chen, it's Angela Mitchell. I need to proceed with the eviction notices we discussed. Yes, for all of them, including my husband." The family finally realized I'd been documenting everything. The color drained from Martha's face. Martha stammered, You can't eliminate us, we're family. I smiled coldly. You eliminated yourselves when you forgot whose house this is. Tommy tugged my hand and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, Mommy, are you really going to make them homeless? What do you think Angela should tell her son in this moment? I knelt down to Tommy's level and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. Sweetheart, do you remember when we visited Mrs. Johnson next door and she asked you to leave when it was dinner time? Tommy nodded. That's because it was her house. Well, this is Mommy's house, and when people are mean to Mommy in Mommy's house, Mommy can ask them to leave. I taught my 7-year-old about property rights in that moment. Sometimes children understand justice better than adults. Tommy looked at Martha and said, So Grandma is like a guest who's being mean? The legal implications hit everyone simultaneously. How would you explain this situation to a child? Mrs. Chen arrived within 30 minutes with a briefcase full of legal documents. She calmly explained that I had properly documented financial abuse, theft, and harassment. The eviction notices were legally binding and enforceable. Robert tried to intimidate her. We'll fight this in court. You can't just throw family out on the street. Mrs. Chen calmly explained that they had no legal standing. The mirror of reality was crystal clear now. I held all the cards. That's when Mrs. Chen dropped the bombshell. Oh, and about that, $23,000. That's considered theft. We can press charges if you prefer. Have you ever felt the satisfaction of having professional backup in a family conflict? I gave them a choice. Return the $23,000 immediately, or I'd file theft charges with the police. Robert's face went white. The money was gone, spent on his new toys and lifestyle upgrades. Sarah suddenly realized her temporary stay was built on stolen money. Mike finally understood the legal consequences he was facing. I looked at them and said, You taught me about eliminating things that don't belong. Time to eliminate the financial abuse. Mrs. Chen handed them the papers. You have 72 hours to vacate. The clock starts now. Robert made one final desperate move. What desperate move do you think he made? In a panic, Robert called the police, claiming I was illegally evicting family members. When the officers arrived, I calmly handed them my documentation, while Mrs. Chen explained the legal situation. The officer checked the house deed, reviewed the eviction notices, and confirmed my legal rights as the homeowner. Sir, he told Robert, you're essentially trespassing at this point. Martha broke down crying, playing the victim card one last time. You're watching justice in real time. Sometimes it takes uniformed officers to make manipulative people face reality. The officer looked at the family and said something that made Martha's victim act completely backfire. Have you ever seen a manipulator's tactics fail publicly? After reviewing all my documentation, the officer saw the clear pattern of financial abuse and theft. He turned to Martha. Ma'am, if you don't vacate voluntarily, you'll be arrested for trespassing. The homeowner has been more than patient. By now, neighbors were watching from their windows. The whole street could see what was happening. Martha's mask slipped completely. The concerned grandmother became a raging woman screaming about her rights in someone else's house. That's when Tommy did something that became neighborhood legend. He walked up to the officer with his toy sheriff badge. Children often have the clearest sense of right and wrong, don't they? Tommy handed the officer his plastic sheriff badge. Officer, my mommy is the good guy. They took her grandma's jewelry and made her cry. Bad guys should leave, right? The officer smiled, handed the badge back, and said, That's right, deputy. Good guys protect their homes. Martha's words came back to haunt her. We eliminated the things that don't belong. Tommy looked at her and said, Now you're eliminated too. But Mike made one last attempt to manipulate the situation. He tried to use Tommy as leverage in the most despicable way. How low do you think he went? Mike threatened. If you kick out my family, I'll fight for custody of Tommy. I'll tell the court you're an unfit mother who puts property over family relationships. My parents will testify about your unstable behavior. This is every mother's nightmare, having her parenting questioned by an abusive ex who has family backup. I felt my confidence waver. For a moment, I considered backing down, But then Tommy tugged my sleeve and said something that reminded me why I was fighting. What would you do if threatened with losing your child? Tommy looked at his father with confusion and said, "Daddy, why would the judge give me to people who steal Mommy's money and throw away her treasures? That would be like giving kids to the bad guys in movies." Tommy's innocent question exposed the moral bankruptcy of Mike's threat. How do you explain to a court that you want custody from the parent you helped rob? Mrs. Chen had been quietly taking notes. She looked up with a smile that scared Mike more than any threat could. Sometimes children cut through adult complications with devastating simplicity. "Mr. Mitchell," Mrs. Chen said calmly, "you just threatened to commit perjury in front of a police officer to gain custody from a mother you financially abused. I'd reconsider this strategy." The officer nodded, still taking notes. Mike realized his threat had just created evidence against him. I looked at Mike and said, "You want to eliminate me from Tommy's life the same way your mother eliminated me from my house." Mike's final words to me before leaving that day revealed just how deep the family poison went. What could he possibly say that would be worse than threatening custody? "You never understood our family, Angela. This is how we survive. We take care of our own, and everyone else is expendable. I thought you'd learn your place eventually, but you're too selfish." Martha nodded approvingly at her son's cruelty. That's when I realized Mike wasn't a victim of his family's manipulation. He was a willing participant in their system of abuse, but Tommy heard every word, and his response shattered Mike's last attempt at looking like the good guy. How do you think a 7-year-old processed hearing his father call his mother expendable? Tommy backed away from Mike. "Daddy, you're being mean to Mommy. Grandma was mean too. I don't want to live with mean people." He ran to my side. Mike's own son chose the parent who protects him over the family who manipulates. The generational cycle of abuse stopped right there. Tommy chose love over loyalty, protection over family politics. Mike looked at his son choosing me and said the most revealing thing yet about his family's values. Have you seen a child instinctively choose the healthy parent? Fine. Tommy will understand when he's older that family loyalty matters more than individual happiness, just like I learned to put my family first over everything else. I realized Mike was never going to change. He was indoctrinated into this toxic system from childhood. The phrase, "eliminate things that don't belong," finally made sense. They eliminated empathy, boundaries, and individual worth. They kept only blind loyalty. As they packed their belongings that night, Martha made one final threat that actually made me laugh out loud. What threat could possibly be funny at this point? "You'll regret this, Angela. We'll tell everyone in town what kind of person you really are. No one will want to associate with someone who throws family out on the street." I laughed. "You mean you'll tell people I stopped letting you steal from me?" I realized their threats were empty now. What could they possibly say that was worse than the truth about what they did? That's when I decided to beat them to it. I pulled out my phone and did something that terrified them. What do you think she did with her phone? I posted a factual account on our neighborhood Facebook group. PSA, if anyone asks why my in-laws moved out suddenly, it's because they stole $23,000 from my joint account and threw away my belongings to make room for more family members in my house. Lesson learned, document everything. The mirror was finally clear. No more secrets, no more shame about being abused, just truth. The neighborhood response was immediate and more supportive than I ever expected. But one comment changed everything. Have you ever felt the relief of telling your truth publicly? Comments flooded in within minutes. I knew something was off when I saw them loading your stuff into a dumpster. "Girl, you should press charges for theft." My ex-in-laws tried similar, lawyer up. My neighbor Mrs. Peterson offered to testify about witnessing the disposal of my belongings. Instead of eliminating me, they eliminated themselves from respectability. Their own actions became their downfall. But the comment that changed my life came from someone I never expected, and it offered me something bigger than revenge. Who do you think reached out to help her? A local family attorney saw my post and offered pro bono services for the financial recovery lawsuit. A real estate agent offered to help document the property value. A child therapist offered free sessions for Tommy. The entire community rallied around a single mother standing up to abuse. I learned that telling your truth doesn't just free you, it gives others permission to support justice. But the most surprising offer came from someone who understood exactly what I'd been through. Have you ever had strangers offer to help when family wouldn't? A woman messaged me privately. My mother-in-law did the same thing 10 years ago. I didn't have the courage to fight back and lost my house. Your story gave me hope that it's not too late to seek justice. I realized my fight had helped other women recognize their own abuse. I could see clearly now that this was never about me being difficult. This was about people choosing abuse over love. Tommy overheard me talking to the woman about her situation. His response showed me something beautiful about our future. How powerful is it when your story helps someone else find courage? "Mommy, can we help other kids whose grandparents are mean like that?" Tommy asked. I realized I could turn this experience into advocacy. I started a blog about financial abuse in families, proper documentation, and legal rights. Tommy proudly told his friends his mommy helps families stay safe. We learned to eliminate abuse from our lives while keeping love intact. That's the lesson worth passing down. 6 months later, I recovered $18,000 through legal action. Mike pays child support regularly, but has minimal custody, his choice. Tommy thrives in our stable environment. Martha and Robert faced eviction from their next victim's home when that family also said no to their manipulation. My house fills with laughter again. Tommy hangs new family photos, pictures of just us, plus treasured old ones of his beloved great-grandmother. I keep grandmother's jewelry box on my dresser where it belongs. Last week, a new neighbor moving in asked me for advice about setting boundaries with difficult relatives. I smiled and said, "Let me tell you about the day my 7-year-old taught a whole family about property rights." Tommy looked up from his homework and added, "Mommy, the house feels happy again. Bad people made it sad, but now it knows we love it." What boundaries do you need to set in your own life?